Hello, welcome to Code with Eddie. Today we are going to be talking about microservice architecture. What is microservice architecture and what are the benefits? In a microservice architecture, we are mostly concerned about decoupling the application into smaller independent services. To better understand what is a microservice architecture, it is good we talk about a monolithic architecture, which is a direct opposite of a microservice architecture. In a monolithic architecture, our system is seen as a single unit with different modules. So we could have the department management module, we could have the salary module, we could have a system user management, we could have the login management, we could have a leave management, and we could have a employee management in an entire system of a payroll management system. So those are some possible modules in a payroll management system. Each of these modules could interact with each other. Each of these modules could share the same data from the database. Each of these modules could send a particular request to a client, a particular response, sorry, to a client, and the dependency of each of these modules is difficult at times to trace because each of the modules can interact many times or one time to a particular unit of the module. So in a monolithic architecture, the client will make requests to the system, and then the system will figure out which of the module to interact, and each module will figure out which module to interact, and then at the end of the day, the client request is compiled and sent back to the client. So all these modules are running on a single system unit and they interact with each other. That is a simple explanation of a monolithic architecture. Now, what are the disadvantages in this architecture? The first disadvantage in this architecture is that new features and bug fixes are difficult to develop, to deploy, because each time you will need to recompile and redeploy these new features and bug fixes in the application. So if you make a change, you will have to recompile the entire application and then deploy it again on the system. And also the second disadvantage is that you have to test for every change made on the system. So if you change a particular part of the code, you have to compile the entire system and you test it, then you redeploy. So that is another big huge disadvantage. Now the third disadvantage is that you have a huge code base. So your entire application is running on one big huge code, and it is difficult at times to find your way out through the application. And if you want to determine a small logic in the application, you maybe go through different packages, different folders of the application code to determine what particular area performs what particular logic. So it is difficult at times to manage these difficulties. Now, the last disadvantage amongst my four disadvantages I have here is it is difficult to scale the application. So even if you have a small part of the application with huge traffic, for example, in a system here, if the salary unit, the salary module of the application has a lot of requests and it is slowing, it will affect the entire modules of the application. If some other user wishes to get information from the employee management module, the entire system will be slow because the load in the salary management system is heavy and it affects the entire module of the system. So this kind of design has these four disadvantages which I've listed and many more. These are just four most outstanding disadvantages. Now, to solve this problem in a monolithic architecture, then the microservice architecture was designed. In a microservice architecture, these modules are independent and loosely coupled from each other. So the department module is independent, it's a single project on its own with its own development team if in case, and it has its own database, so it relates to its own database. The salary module, the same thing, has its own database, it has its own code, its own module separate, it's a new project, and for every other modules the same. Now each of these modules provide an API to access information from this module. So they have a separate API, and every request on the system comes through the API gateway, this part of the application. No client has direct access to any of these modules. Every request comes through the API gateway module. The API gateway module, you can think of it as a router. It routes the user's request and build whatever request the user requires and send to the user. So if a user requires to get information of an employee, the salary of an employee, for example, it will send its request to the payroll management system, the API gateway. The API gateway now will determine that, okay, to get the salary of an employee, I will need to access the employee module, and I also need to access the salary module. So the API gateway will make a request of the employee module and make a request to the salary module and compile all these requests into the employee and the salary and send to the client. So that's how this module is designed. So each of these modules are independent in each other. So for example, if I want to add a new feature in the salary module, I will just go to the project of the salary module, make my change, and compile and redeploy only the salary module, and all of this module will not be affected. If I need to do a particular test, I can just take each of these modules and test them independently. We compile and redeploy while the entire system is still up and running. So we have cancelled these disadvantages of testing and redeploying, and also we have a simple code base. So our application is divided into smaller projects with simple code base. So if I want to figure out a particular logic in a salary module, I just go right to this small application, small services, and I'll figure out the particular aspect of the logic. It is simpler to determine because of the small code size compared to the huge code based in the monolithic architecture. Now also the last disadvantage which I listed is difficulties to scale the system. In a microservice architecture, if a particular unit like the salary module which we've been talking about is slow and it has a lot of traffic, only the server which is running this module will be affected. All other modules will respond very fast to any request. So you can easily say that, okay, because I have huge requests in the salary module, I might increase my server specification, or I might do some management in this particular section of the code to make it responsive and fast. So you can scale each module depending on the load, the data, the size, and whatever, and it makes the system very independent and very fast. So the main idea in a microservice architecture is to loosely couple your application. You are decoupling your application into smaller services which are independent from each other. So we try as much as possible in this design not to interact a service with another, to have complete independent and code from each other. So we try not to have an employee system depending on a leave management system. So these two modules will not interact. Every request is managed from the API gateway. it is difficult at times in development to maintain this independency, but that is the idea in microservice architecture. Thank you. I hope you like this lecture. If you enjoy it, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a like and a comment. And see you in my next lecture. Bye bye.